Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Mystery Rider speaking, and welcome to the show. Yeah. All right. Well, today we're back with yet another Battlebots video. That seems to be all I've been doing lately. Maybe I should branch out a little bit. Anyways, today we're going to be doing something that we did last week, in that we're going to be talking about some of the bonus fights, reviewing them over, and then we're going to be making some predictions, because we all know how well that went last week. It really didn't go well last week. But anyways, all right, well, because the Death Roll versus Foxtrot fight is not premiering until next Wednesday, most likely because of the holiday, we are just going to be examining the Petunia versus Warhawk fight. And honestly, there really isn't a whole lot to talk about in this fight, because it was pretty one-sided. Yeah, Warhawk pushed, flicked, threw, and then eventually shoved Petunia in the corner where it died. Petunia really couldn't do anything against Warhawk, and despite the fact that Warhawk was using a very tiny bar weapon, it was still pretty effective, despite the fact that it didn't really look like it was spinning at full speed. I wouldn't say this was a lackluster fight, but I would say that it was not as entertaining as, say, Cobalt versus Duck. It wasn't a spectacular fight, but it was pretty dang decisive. Congratulations to Warhawk on the win, and let's hope Petunia does better in the future. Alright, enough about that. On with the predictions! So, we got a pretty jam-packed lineup for episode 5 of Battlebots. We're going to be starting off with the double Bs. Black Dragon versus Bloodsport. Now, some people were impressed with Bloodsport. Most people weren't that impressed with Bloodsport in its fight against Lucky. Really depends on who you ask. And Black Dragon, a lot of people thought Black Dragon should have won against Texas Twister, but as Mr. Psycho pointed out on his YouTube channel, it was very much in the rules. So, yeah. Two robots that really need to prove themselves. And this seems like a very good matchup, actually, because they have the ability to do a lot of damage to each other. That they really do. So I think I have to give it to Black Dragon, because while the spinning bar on Bloodsport could be a very effective weapon, I think Black Dragon will just outdrive them. Plus, Bloodsport definitely seems to have some sort of reliability issue with the bar. It gets overheated or something like that. So I would definitely give this to Black Dragon. And if the fight were to end up in where both weapons actually become canceled out, Black Dragon still has the ability to push the other guy around. So yeah, I would definitely give it the Black Dragon on that. Alright, next up is two of my favorite robots. It's Witch Doctor versus Captain Shredderator! Yeah! Alright, this one's a tough one. But as much as it pains me to say this, I have to give it to Witch Doctor. Witch Doctor has been very impressive this year. And I have to say, despite the fact that Captain Shredderator was completely dominant in his fight against Wan Hu, who is also making an appearance later in this video and this episode, Captain Shredderator killed itself. Plus, Captain Shredderator also has a pretty bad history against vertical spinners getting flipped over and stuff. I mean, who can forget in-game versus Captain Shredderator. So yeah, I have to give it the Witch Doctor on that. But you may never know. Stuff could happen. Alright, next up it's Huge versus Jasper. Now Jasper, again, is one of those robots that... Actually, I don't think a lot of people are talking about Jasper. I mean, I've heard a few people talk about him, saying that it looks like a good hammer bot, but personally, it's kind of weird looking, kind of top heavy looking, but I don't know. Looks kind of weird. But I have to give it to Huge. This is probably a no-brainer, but then again, I've been wrong in the past. But I think Huge has an advantage in terms of weaponry. Alright, next up, this is a big fight. This is a really huge fight. It's Gigabyte versus Minotaur. Minotaur didn't do too well in his first fight. The weapon really never spun up the way that they wanted it to. But Gigabyte, despite the fact they got off at a really wobbly start, they dominated the fight against Kronos. And Minotaur definitely has the ability to throw Gigabyte into the air. So it's really just a question of durability on both robots' part. Overall, this is probably going to be the closest fight of the night, I feel. Unless Battlebots makes me a liar. Oh boy. But yeah, it's tough. It really is tough. I mean, Minotaur is not looking that great this year. And Gigabyte is definitely improved. I mean, at least the shell hasn't come off. So... it's tough. It really is. I want to give it the Minotaur because I want to give it the benefit of a doubt. And again, Minotaur is one of those robots that, despite the fact that it gets knocked down one or two times, it keeps coming back up stronger than ever. So maybe they got the kinks out of the weapon fixed and they can decimate Gigabyte. I'm not sure, but I think it's going to be a close fight. Alright, next up it's Mammoth versus yet another robot that I don't think a lot of people were looking forward to. It's Uppercut. It has this spinning fist thing. It's kind of a weird robot. I mean, then again, it's up against another weird robot. It's up against Mammoth, and Mammoth did extremely well in its fight against Axe Backwards, despite the fact Axe Backwards wasn't really working at 100%. So, the question is Uppercut's weapon going to be effective against Mammoth? Uppercut is a really tall robot, and it also looks like you'll be able to be knocked over pretty easily, so I have to give this to Mammoth. Wow. Mammoth may actually make it to the top 16. That is amazing. That is amazing. I mean, despite what Mammoth looks like, it's actually a very effective machine. Have you seen it in last year's Orlando Fair? I believe that's what it's called. Correct me if I'm wrong. It made it to the top 4 in that competition in its first try. So yeah, it's a, despite how it looks, I mean, it looks kind of like scaffolding. It's a durable machine, well, minus one wheel, and yeah, I have to give this to Mammoth because I think Mammoth is up against a pretty soft opponent. I'm sorry, Uppercut, but I don't think you're going to be that effective. I could be wrong, but I could be right. All right, next up, it's Who, I told you he'd be back, against Shatter. Now, Shatter, they did okay against Witch Doctor in their first fight, despite the fact that they lost their hammerhead. But they kept going in the fight. And Wanhu just outlasted Captain Shredderator because Captain Shredderator killed himself. And their weapon was knocked out early in the fight. And one of their wedge panels was knocked off. So again, it comes down to who you think is the more durable machine. And I have to give it to Shatter. This fight's going to go to Shatter, I feel, because I just don't think Wanhu has anything to go up against Shatter. Again, I could be wrong, but you may never know. And the Texas versus Axe Backwards fight, that's going to be a Science Channel exclusive. So we're going to have to wait and see how that fight goes. But in the meantime, it's time for the main event. Yes, it's time for Son of Watchi versus Whiplash. Two of the best robots this year so far. Oh boy. And judging by the sneak peek they gave us last week, Whiplash was getting pretty torn out. I mean, the left wedge was torn off by Son of Watchi, and they were definitely trying to make it look like Whiplash might have a comeback on its hands. Not entirely sure. But overall, this is tough. This is really, really tough. I mean, again, I don't think it's going to be as tight as Gigabyte versus Minotaur. It's going to be another close fight. It's going to be a really close fight because Whiplash is a durable machine. It can still keep on going despite the fact that it's torn to pieces, losing wheels. And Son of Watchi is a highly durable offensive and defensive machine. The weapon is the defense, pretty much. Now, in terms of who's going to win, again, this is a really tight one. It is a really tight fight. But I have to give it to Whiplash. I think Whiplash has what it takes to go up against a big spinner like Son of Watchi, despite the fact that it has been torn to pieces before by the likes of Tombstone and others. But it's a well-driven machine, and they could manage to somehow flip Son of Watchi over. It is hard to say whether or not that's actually going to happen, but that is very likely. Son of Watchi, I feel like it's kind of the safe bet, but again, Whiplash is a very well-driven machine. It's a durable machine, and it could go all the way. All right. Well, that has been this episode for today. And until next time, sayonara.